Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Please make sure you press the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.
Yes, and I'm so glad to be on your channel. And we're here today with Linda Madison, who is the author of the book Under the Weeping Willow Tree. And she also has a master's in social work from the state of California of University Fresno. And she worked with all populations with various disabilities and hospice with patients and families in regards to the end of life. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate it. What questions do you have for me today?
Okay, so my first question for you, these questions are coming from, because I read a little bit of your book and I'm still in the process of reading and I'm so excited I get to read your story. So one of the questions is, looking back now as you're older, how does it make you feel that you were not able to go and attend or did not even know about your mother's funeral?
Well, I can say to that parents know their children, and wherever their children are emotionally at the time that this takes place, they know sort of how to handle it, because the parents are the ones that should be giving that information to their children. Children sometimes take things differently. It depends on the child, just like a learning style. We're all different. I, for one, felt that my father made the right choice. I was only 4. I didn't understand what was actually going on. And there were other people in the family telling him what to do, which was more difficult. And I think he was afraid that he was going to put his feelings onto me. If, he was going through things like, planning funerals. It involved the baby that was full term, and they were going to bury both my mother and the child at the same time. And that would have been very traumatic, probably for me even to look at.
Yeah, that's a very hard thing to go through, especially it was like a double loss of your mother and a baby because she was pregnant and you said the baby was full term.
Yes.
So it must have been really hard for him. So your dad's perspective in all of this, this hard traumatic event, it was to spare you and to protect you from your feelings from going to your mom's funeral. Do you think, you said it was you believe it's the best choice that your dad made. So why do you believe that was the best choice that your dad made in those circumstances?
Because of my age. And I believe that was the biggest reason that he didn't want me to go. He felt that maybe it would traumatize me. He really probably didn't know how I would take it. And he knew that there would be a lot of trauma around that, with the family. And for me to see that and not understand it, he felt that it was the best thing to do and to not have me be there. And I do believe he made the right decision now.
And you mentioned in your book a few tips for parents. Okay, so my question for you is, what advice would you give parents who are experiencing one of the parent who is sick and is very ill and they have a young child and young children?
Yeah, it really depends on the child's age, because like I said myself, I would not have understood. But if they are in the home, the parents have to say something. They should be telling them that they're not well, they don't feel good. One of the families that I remember dealing with hospice, they had angel music in the background. It was very, you just felt so good when you went in the room, because it just felt like it was coming to an end, but it was a good end. And I feel that parents need to be positive. They need to explain what the end really means when they're gone. And they need to give them closure that they will be going. They aren't going to be with them always. And it depends on the child how they take that. It depends on how close they are to the relative. It depends on if the parents are emotionally available enough to talk to them. But what will happen if the parents do not talk to them? they will go somewhere else and talk to friends, parents of friends. They will somehow try to do something to make themselves feel better. And it's usually through communication and talking.
Yes, and sometimes, like what you say, that they'll do other things. Sometimes it's like temporary relief to get over the pain, or and it's not healthy, and it becomes more toxic because they were never able to express that. When I read your book when you were younger, because the communication was not there, like because of your age, and you believe your dad did the best that he could, because that was very hard. That's a very hard situation. Nobody's prepared for something like that to happen, and I'm sure that was not what they were expecting to happen. They probably were expecting, and they're having a baby, they're gonna come home, they're gonna introduce, so it was like hard for words. So but you needed that closure. So in order to have that closure, there had to be some communication, like you said, down the line, to let them know that the process of it, but to keep a positive influence as well. So, parents, because it's like positive grieving, like, like giving your child beautiful memories of that parent, because you mentioned, like, at 4 years old in the book, you mentioned so vivid the memories of your childhood, of your mom, because you had beautiful memories to cherish that you hold on to. And I think that's another key thing that you mentioned in the book, like how important it is to have like those memory experiences, like as a family, like to cherish those memories, to make it positive, so this way they could have those positive memories to hold on to.
That's correct. That's very correct. However, as I grew older and I was close to my grandparents, I remember having the conversation with my grandfather one day and telling him I miss my mommy. And where did she go? And I didn't know where she went. No one told me. And the only answer he gave me was, she went to heaven. And for me, as a child, I thought it was a place. I didn't know what place it was. And I thought she was coming back. And I longed for that. I looked for that till, those ages between 5 and 10. And that never happened. Because, as we know, heaven is where we go, and that's it. So that part, I understand why he did that, but nobody gave me closure. I didn't have closure. I needed the closure.
Yes, that's so important. And like they mentioned heaven, and you thought it was a place because, if you didn't have that background or understanding what heaven was, you're like, as a child, your imagination is so big and so vivid, and you're just like, okay, well, she'll be back. But you just needed more explanation of life after death. Like that would have gave more of a clear definition of what happened with your mom passing, to give you that closure when it comes back to communication.
Right. And the problem is that no one gave me the closure, and I really should have had that, because as I grew older, I did understand more about someone passing and never coming back. But I didn't put my mother in that category. She was coming back to me, and she didn't come back. So that was a very difficult place for me to be.
Yeah, because you had this hope. And it was like an unrealistic hope that was not going to happen, because like there's hope that you will see her again because she's in heaven. But growing up, you did not have the hope. You had hope like she's coming back physically. Like she's physically coming back, and she's coming home, and I'm just waiting for her to get better, that kind of thing. So that must have been hard, like not able to fully process the grieving process as a child, and that was traumatizing. And then later on, so like, wait, this is grief. This, like, whoa, this is what I've been going through. Like now it hits, the reality of grief is hitting you like in the front of the door, knocking on your door, so to speak. That's right.
That's so true. And then by the time that I did find out that she had passed, it was a very traumatizing time for me in my life. I felt like, yes, I probably did go through some depression. I did go through a lot of, I even felt guilt because I felt like, well, maybe if I would have spent more time with her, which wouldn't have made any difference. But you go through different things at different times.
Yeah, because there's different like stages and process of grief.
And processes.
So as you got older and you realized what grief is, you were able to start going through like different processes. Because as a child, you were still going through a process of grief, but you just didn't understand the process.
Right.
But as you grew older, you're like, and that's one of it is guilt. It's denial. You were in denial. And as a child, you were like denying, like, no, my mom's coming back. You know, you didn't want to face the reality of that, or had the communication of like, she's not coming back in the physical sense. Like, you know, so that was hard. That's a hard thing. And so I know there's a lot more parents that are experiencing, like we spoke about earlier, how I asked you about what advice you would give a parent that has a sick parent. So my question for you is, is what advice would you give to help prepare like a family in a situation like that they have one parent in a hospice situation and they're getting closer to that time where they're going to like eventually, you know, pass away? How do you prepare children for something like so traumatic and traumatizing, such as that, like of a parent? Like that's...
Yeah, I really do. There's sometimes a family has more than just one child, and they may be different ages, and they may be different emotional places in their lives, and the parents usually can see that. And by doing that and taking the child, you know, one by one maybe, and maybe the oldest one telling them we need to spend the good times with grandma, grandpa, family member. We need to have memories of them because they are going to be gone. That's when you can have that talk, when they're at the ages of like 9, 10, 11, when they know more about they're not going to be here any longer. But the younger ones, you will have to be a little bit more gentle in telling them, especially if they're close to the relative. It's very difficult for the little ones because they may have spent really quality time with them. And the little ones, you know, you can express they won't be here long because they're not feeling, you know, good. They're sick, but they still love you. They will always love you. You will always be in their heart. You know, things around that where they feel that love from them. And then being open to them and honest and giving them your love. They need that from you because all of a sudden if they realize that death is the end, they immediately transfer that to you. Wonder if death is to my mommy or my daddy, and that starts a whole new thing. So a lot of positive talk around that, giving them reassurance and telling them that, you know, they'll be in their hearts forever, and the grief process will still be there. They will still grieve the loss, but they won't feel as bad, and they will not be feeling like having depression. They won't have the depression that they might otherwise have. Communicating, it's the most important thing you can do for yourself and for your child. And to put yourself, you know, children do not relate to you if you're talking to them as if they're an adult. You have to go down to where they are, their level, their talk, and being there emotionally, physically, and just being there for them, loving them through it, giving them reassurance, and everything you can do as a parent, because this is something that they will remember for years to come.
Yeah. And like the positive like communication, and just like, you know, you say like it's not going to be like physically they won't come back, but there's still some hope that they can hold on to, because if their parent went to heaven, then they have hope. Like, I will see them again one day.
That's right.
So and that's the process, like learning about like life after death, like learning about those things and how to explain it to your children, and just knowing that their parent, like, that passed away, will want them to have the best life, will want them to live a full life, and to have happy memories, and to focus on also positive and helping the child cope, like you said, in different ways. There's different coping tools and resources that they can use to help overcome grief, and just staying there, like, with the positive of, like, there is hope.
Yes.
This, yes, the parent is not coming back physically, but if that parent went to heaven, you have the hope that you will see your parent one day, and you will live a full life, that and they may have the fear of, like, what if I get sick, because now that's traumatizing, because they saw their parent get sick, and they're like, oh my goodness, like, then they say they get the flu or something, like something minor, it's nothing like serious, like, they got something minor, and they're like, oh my goodness, am I gonna die? Like, how would you give advice to the parents, how to help them to cope during those times if they get, like, sick from school or something like that?
Well, there again, I feel like the parent needs to do a lot of reassuring and letting them know that this is just something that we're going to deal with. You have a little fever, your tummy hurts, but you're going to get over this, and we'll go to the doctor and see what he says. Maybe you'll need some medicine, but everything's going to be okay. And you look, you just are positive towards the future for them, and reassuring them. And you can even say, are you worried because of whatever happened? And if they open up and say yes, that is your opening to be able to talk to them, and just reaffirm that they shouldn't be worried about what is going on.
And so you talk about those things, and have you ever experienced, like, as a child, like, your dad getting sick, or you're getting sick, or maybe your sister, because you didn't see your sister a lot, but there's moments, like, I'm sure, like, somebody getting sick, or hearing about your grandparent getting sick. Did you ever have that fear, like, you were not going to see them again?
Oh, I did, because I didn't find out about my mother until I was 11, 12. And then shortly after that, my grandfather got very sick, and I was very close to him. And I remember they allowed me to go in to be with him and to talk with him. And I was just devastated because I knew he wasn't coming back to me. But my parents were very loving, very understanding. And they even asked me, do you want to go to the funeral? And I thought that was very considerate, because many parents will say, you are going to the funeral, because it's not because of them, it's because they're afraid of what others might say about them because the children weren't there. And that's definitely something that parents need to think about, because I think a child that old will tell you, I would prefer not to go, and because they want to remember them with them alive. And I would definitely listen to my child if that's what they had said to me.
I think that's really important, because giving the child the option if they want to go, because the funeral usually is, like, more for us, because the person already passed and went away. So it's like having your last goodbye, saying your last words, even though they already died, so there's not like they can hear you speak to them. But it's like the funeral is more for us. It's more for us.
It really is.
So for you to say that, it's like giving that child that choice. It's for them how they choose to remember, like you said, because a lot of times people have a funeral because they want to choose to remember their last goodbyes and their last, in the process of burying them and releasing them in the ground, which is really hard. Yeah. It's a hard process. Yeah. And so it really should be, like you said, it really is considerate for that child how they choose to remember. And even as adults, some people like get into like like family feuds or even families break apart because you're like, you didn't go to the funeral, you didn't care. But it really didn't have to do with the person not caring. It was just more about how the person responds to those kind of situations and how they wanted to choose to remember that person. They didn't want to remember that person looking at them in a casket.
That's right.
Some people are more sensitive than others, and everybody has a different way to process things. So it may be harder for some to actually look at something like that versus somebody else may be like they're okay, they're accepting to it, they are fine with that. So I think respecting people in their choices, whether they come to a funeral or not, it should never bring like a division or something in the family or argument, or it's like, what would they say, or like be afraid of what others have to say. That's because it's important to validate their grieving process and how they process things as well.
Yes, definitely. That's totally true, because we shouldn't put our feelings on to other people. They have their own ways of dealing, and we have our own ways of dealing with grief and loss. So I totally have experienced a lot of grief and loss in my life. My grandparents, my mother, my father, my sister, and even my own daughter. So I know that it's a difficult time, difficult period, but it's all in how you view it and how you look at it, in that how you're going to respond to it. Yeah, loss and grief is a hard thing to deal with.
I think that's very key, like very important what you said, like how to respond to it, because I also had my share of loss. Like I have lost my daughter as a stillborn in 2021.
Right.
You lost your daughter in 2021. And I know that how we choose to respond to it determines how long we're going to stay in grief, how it's going to affect our children, how it's going to affect the people around us. There's a certain way to grieve and to have that time to grieve, because there's some days you just taking a shower or something and you just gotta let it out right there and just cry and pray and just go through the process of the grief and face those hard things. And I think like facing grief is important, because you have to go through the healing process in order to come out of grief, because grief is like a deep sorrow.
It is.
And it's unhealthy for a person to spend the rest of their life, I believe, in deep sorrow. What would you say about that?
Oh, yes, definitely. Because a person could actually get stuck in that place, and they become immobile. They can't move. They can't experience pleasure in life. They don't want to go anywhere. They can be very depressed. They can not see anything in their future. And that is not the way we want people to live. We want them to be happy, healthy, and knowing that, in the end, it's going to be a good thing, not a bad thing. It's something that we can, even if we don't look forward to it because we love being here, we know that we have hope. And that is very important.
Holding on to hope is very important. And I believe, like, my faith, and that's what helped me to overcome grief as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So, one last thing. What would be your encouraging words that you would leave the audience here today?
I would say that as parents, and someone that we love is, never coming back, that we just bind together as a family, love one another, look to our future, and be very positive. And that's going to help your family to move on. And if you see a child that is becoming depressed or is not taking the grief and the loss well, you need to get help. That's very important, because something worse could actually come out of that, and you don't want that as a parent. So I think parents, they can lift their children up and make them feel positive in life, and that helps them to find out what they are going to do in their own life.
Well, thank you, Linda, for sharing
You're so
and
welcome.
answering all these questions and sharing about your book, and it's beautiful. And I'm so glad I was able to do this interview with you.
Yeah, thank you.
And then I'm sure there could be more videos to come.
Yeah.
In a world where courage meets adversity, one woman's story will captivate your heart. Meet Linda Madison, a poetic survivor navigating the highs and lows of modern-day America. Linda knows that life can change in the blink of an eye, but she also knows the power of resilience and hope. Her words bring to life the old-fashioned sweat and tears that define her journey. Under the Weeping Willow Tree will take you on a journey through the depths of human emotion. Join Linda as she shares her tale, a story so true it's almost unbelievable. Imagine yourself beneath the Weeping Willow Tree, lost in Linda Madison's world. Let her words embrace you like the shimmering gray-green leaves and drooping summer branches. Under the Weeping Willow Tree is a tale beautifully rooted in the human experience. It will nourish your day and your week, reminding you of the power of wonder and resilience. Give yourself the opening to deepen your own wonder. Discover Linda Madison's unforgettable journey. Available now.